Dear Mr. Thomas Berkman, Mr. Berkman with the Department of Environmental Conservation under Basil Sagos and Governor Andrew Cuomo. It would seem that the State of New York Environmental Conservation Department understands high water and low water, up and down water, not only on Lake Ontario, but also on Lake George, the mill pond. David Wick and Roger Smith of the Lake George Park Commission and Thomas West of the Fund for Lake George and David Decker's lawyers, along with Judge John Hall, Sheriff James LaFarr, and the Warren County Board of Supervisors certainly understand that the lawsuit filed by Mr. Berkman from the Department of Environmental Conservation against the International Joint Commission for the High Water and the property destruction on Lake Ontario is the identical story as what happens with the up and down, up and down, up and down waters during winter ice cover on Lake George, the mill pond sewage flushing lake. Now everybody knows that the Lachute River has for decades been repeatedly flushed by Lake George of all of its sewage. And we all know now that Lake George and its contaminated sewage-laden waters have been diluted for the solution for the pollution. Attorney, counselor, lawyer, Mr. Berkman with DEC. So, to the point of this video, to the Attorney General of the State of New York, to the state legislature of the State of New York, to Governor Andy Cuomo, and to Basil Sagos at Department of Environmental Confiscation. The mill pond operations on Lake George, the up and down, up and down, up and down water destruction, the destruction of property on Lake George is the identical manifestations of property damage that you just got done filing a lawsuit regarding Lake Ontario and the International Joint Commission. Now, I would suggest possibly that Judge John Hall and District Attorney Carasone with Kathy Bozzoni and Chris Novinsky of the Lake George Waterkeeper's Office on the smartest lake in the world. Compare the property destruction on Lake Ontario and the high water and such on Lake Ontario and the property destruction on the up and down, up and down, up and down mill pond of Lake George. Now, below you can find huge amounts of information and data, historical, well, I got historical records literally by the truckloads. Judge John Hall, Sheriff James LaFarr, and Travis Whitehead, and particularly Mr. Slight, David Decker's lawyers, and Kathy Bozzoni, and I can name names all afternoon concerning the comparison between property damages on Lake Ontario, Andy Cuomo, and the property damages that were done to the Witham Family Marina over and over and over and over and over again on the sewage flushing lake, the mill pond, Lake George, using Dam A, also known as Dam 230, up there at the old Weedville, Judge Hall. So to James LaFarr, now you begin to understand why my father was unlawfully arrested and put in a jail cell. He was put in a jail cell at the Warren County Sheriff's Office for trying to stop the illegal seizure, the illegal foreclosure and sale, and the illegal taking of the Witham property at Harris Bay because of all the property damage and the dock destruction. Exactly like what happens on Lake Ontario. Attorney Berkman, Counselor Berkman, and Basil Sagos. So folks, look for all the information below. And Thomas S. Berkman, Department of Environmental Confiscation, DEC, Albany, New York. We've got some discussions to have here, along with a few federal judges. Because you see, in the federal courts, this comparison between property damages on Lake Ontario is precisely the same property damages that wiped out Clifford and Anita Witham many years in a row. So folks, I'm going to leave it right there. Look for all the information and links below. And as always, hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha we're coming back.